I'll see you guys in the dark.
This story is about my wife Ava's experience with an escort, and it is absolutely true as written. I have previously written about the beautiful colonial city where we live in central Mexico, and we love living there. It was a wonderful, warm April evening when this story unfolded. First, a little background information. In our area of Mexico, there are what they call strip clubs. But these establishments are not exactly similar to American strip clubs. In fact, in many cases, they're a combination of strip club and legal brothels. The concept is that you watch the dancers, and if you see one that you wish to share with, you can pay the house for her services in a nice, clean room. In our area, these clubs are heavily guarded, and most often they are put of a security hacienda-type setup where the access and departure of patrons is strictly controlled. There are often multiple clubs within the same compound, and once inside, you can choose to visit whichever club appeals to you. The police, and or military of course, have unrestricted access, and it's not uncommon for them to do heavily armed spot checks. Prostitution is legal here. Thus, these clubs are legal establishments from a law enforcement perspective. Visits by authorities are more oriented towards keeping the peace, because on occasion, some members of organized crime may drop in to be entertained. Disputes between organized crime organizations do not often end peacefully. Additionally, there are what are known in English as screw motels, which again exist within the walls of hacienda-type structures. Here you can access the facility discreetly and rent nice rooms that include jacuzzis and porn shows on TV by the hour at affordable rates. Our experience with these facilities is that they are mostly patronized by people having affairs that do not want to be discovered. Now back to our evening. Ava and I were downtown enjoying cultural events at some of our favorite bars. As I have written previously on date nights, I have input of what Ava wears, which means no panties, no bra, and nice classy clothes that can, with the flick of one button, expose her beautiful breasts or vagina. I love her being discreetly and being an exhibitionist, and she enjoys the result. That definitely pleases us both. We were sitting at the bar in one of our favorite clubs. There were men outside eating at tables, and the odd patron walking through the club. The men that I have just mentioned took notice of Ava, which is expected because she is a very beautiful and sexy woman. I saw this as an opportunity to tease these men and maybe interest them in some playtime later on. Ava was sitting sideways at the bar, and so was I, so that we could face each other to talk. This meant that one side of Ava's ass, thigh, and legs were facing the men outside. Over the period of a few minutes, I pushed Ava's dress up to her waist, so these gentlemen had clear view of her beautiful ass and thighs from the side. Ava has a perfect ass and legs, so it's impossible for a man not to look at her. Her position also afforded me direct access to her vagina. That, of course, I took advantage of. In the end, the businessmen left with other people, but not before taking at least a good look at my beautiful wife. The trouble was that we were feeling frisky and horny, and we wanted risky action of some sort before we headed home. We discussed several options, and since neither of us had ever been inside the hacienda that housed multiple strip clubs, we decided to flag down a taxi and go there. Our imaginations led us to envision some horny men inside one of these clubs that we ultimately could attract for our own purposes. Our taxi driver did not want to take us there for his personal security reasons, but we convinced him to drop us off there anyways. The guy at the guardhouse asked us questions, and then he granted us access. Once inside the compound, there were 5 or 6 clubs spread around the outside walls facing inwards towards the center parking area. We checked out the different places and found that many were closed. In the end, there were only 2 establishments open, one large and one smaller one. We entered the larger club, which had a nice big stage for the dancers, and the club was generally very luxurious. We had a front row seat as we were served drinks. Over time, Ava talked with our waitress in Spanish, and we learned how the place worked. But I mean by this in the transaction of watching the dancers, then selecting the dancer you want, and then you pay the house for her services. We watched a few dancers while consuming a few drinks, and also flirted with a table of gentlemen sitting near us. It was all entertaining, but since at the moment we were not considering the idea of using the services of the ladies, it was not working out as we had imagined. About that time, a group of heavily armed soldiers walked in and checked out the entire place, including the bedrooms. Maybe half an hour later, they departed without incident, but their visit had a chilling effect on the patrons, including us. Next, we walked across the compound to visit the smaller club, but it was dead, and we only had one drink before leaving. Fortunately, we were able to grab a taxi that was there to drop some people off, because we were later advised that taxis would not come to the compound to pick up customers for their own safety reasons. From here, we went home, and we enjoyed a great night of sex together, just as we always do on date nights. We discussed the concept of the clubs over a couple of weeks, and then we created the notion of a different scheme. One of our turn-ons has always been the concept of Eva screwing some stranger for money. We reasoned that we could go to the club closer to home and try to make a deal where we could hire Eva out to a male customer, and she could enjoy the sex while donating all the proceeds to the club. On the surface, it seemed like a workable idea to a couple of novices like us. We have a gentleman's club much closer to home. However, it is a strip club and brothel just like the others. It is closer to home, which meant safer traveling for us. But our problem was that the entrance was not hidden, so there was always the chance that someone could see Ava entering. Being a teacher and moral symbol of the community, we could not allow that to happen. This, of course, was the danger of fooling around in our city and community. One night, it was quiet in our area, as most people were busy elsewhere, and so we decided to take the risk of visiting the local gentleman's club. The club had been closed for almost a year because there was a shootout inside, leaving multiple people dead. It had just recently opened under new management, and we felt more or less safe visiting there. We first went into a different area of town for a drink, and to catch a cab where the driver did not know us, or where our home is. We were picked up by a driver and delivered to the gentleman's club, but not without first receiving a lecture from him about how dangerous it was for us to go there. A nice bouncer-type gentleman escorted us inside, where we were found a really nice, well-decorated club. It was quiet, because we arrived around 8 p.m., and the bartender told us that the place really didn't become busy until the midnight hour. Since it was quiet, we had an opportunity to talk with the bartender about our scheme. He told us straight out that the working girls there would not allow him to mess with their customers, period. More conversation ensued, and eventually, the option we agreed on was the bartender, and one of the girls could do a threesome with Ava. I think we paid 1,000 pesos, which is $50 US, for this setup, and then we headed to the bedroom. The room was bright, spotless, and well decorated, much better than we had imagined it would be. In clubs like this is a timekeeper, and the minute your time is up, a buzzer sounds, and the employees must leave. The bartender turned out to be a dud. He was a big guy with a small junk that he could not keep hard. Ava and the girl exchanged orgasms, and before we knew it, our time was up. We left knowing that there was an opportunity for sexy fun time here, but not with people we had been with that night. Some days or weeks later, we decided to try again. Only this time, there would only be a working girl and Ava to share with. It was there to watch and keep Ava safe, nothing else. Just as before, we arrived at the gentleman's club as discreetly as possible, and we made our way to the bar. The place was still quiet for the same reason as last time, but that didn't matter to us. In a booth not far from us were several pretty young ladies, and I'm guessing they were between the ages of 18 and 23, or something like that, because they were of legal age. All of these girls were pretty and well built, but one stood out from the rest. We then told the bartender that we wanted her. She soon came to sit with us for a drink. We discussed the kind of sex that we wanted and settled on the financial agreements. I don't remember the young lady's name, but for now, let's call her Rebecca. She was very pretty, with real breasts that were big for her frame. She had an ass almost as nice as Ava's, and one of the best parts was that she was very intelligent and friendly. This fact made the entire experience much more enjoyable. When our drinks were finished, Rebecca asked us to follow her where we paid the house for 1 hour of her services, and then followed her to her room. Once inside, she began to kiss Ava, and then she beckoned for me to join in, but I declined. This was Ava's treat. Not long after that, both Ava and Rebecca were super hot, naked, and horny. I didn't expect Rebecca to be horny, but she was, which made everything much better for Ava. Soon, they were in the 69 position, and I could see that Ava was really into this situation. At this point, I was very hard, because in front of me were two very beautiful and sexy ladies getting off on each other. Another of my fantasies was once again unfolding. Both ladies finished together, and then they enjoyed some very long and deep kisses. There was a little conversation in English as Rebecca explained that she worked a circuit, and she could be in our city for 2 or more weeks. We discussed the possibility of meeting elsewhere one afternoon, and then visited the local Screw Motel when we were ready for sex. Soon the conversation ended as Ava was really excited to play with Rebecca's body. She caressed her, she sucked her, and she talked erotically to her until eventually eating her out, and Rebecca had another. We later came to understand that it was not common for customers to care about the girls having an orgasm, and so the time she spent with Ava was special. After Rebecca finished again, she told Ava to lay back and enjoy what was about to happen. Rebecca kissed and caressed Ava from head to toe as she put a couple of fingers inside of her. Ava squirts, and she is really excited, and quickly, she finished in Rebecca's hand. Ava also molties, and Rebecca sensed this. Rebecca began eating while she finished all over again. I don't know how many Ava enjoyed before the buzzer rang, but I am guessing 8 or more times at least. Rebecca thanked Ava and me, and she again suggested that we meet sometime before she moved on to the next city. The two women embraced in a long, passionate kiss, and then Rebecca was gone. We did not ever have the opportunity to see Rebecca again, because 2 days later, we headed out to Puerto Vallarta for vacation. Ava and I went home that evening where we talked and played more. Although Ava was just about worn out for the evening, by that time at least, Ava told me that the sex she shared with Rebecca was, and remains, the very best sex that she ever had with any woman. When I asked what made it so good, she said Rebecca knew what she was doing, and she cared about giving the best sex that she could. And of course, it helped that Rebecca was young and beautiful and sexy. This was our first experience with a brothel, and it remains one of our very best to date, according to Ava. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.